Hey everyone, Jonathan here. In case you guys have been following the development of the Grand Block Odyssey, you might be wondering how are we going to keep the game interesting as we keep going through the game. Um, so for the people that haven't seen the game so far, uh, the core of the game mechanic is that having some puzzles where we need to push blocks onto different switches in order to be able to open the next areas. So I'll push those yellow blocks, yeah, gold blocks, yellow blocks onto those switches, and you'll see once we finish the puzzle, it will open the door to the next area, and it will also say that our level is completed. So very, very basic by itself. We can then go and move to a different puzzle, which has the same mechanics, has a different layout, keeps it interesting. But I figured that just having this mechanic in the game would not be enough, and I really wanted that to be the core. So instead of adding brand new mechanics and more things, and like I used to have fighting, I used to have other mechanics like that, picking up items, I decided to put all of that aside and instead really focus on making those blocks more interesting. So what we're going to see today is all the different blocks that we have in the game. So for example, here we introduce a brand new block that is brown and has two white dots on this one. And basically what it means is when I push it, uh, it will start depleting the indicator that we have. And when it gets to 0, the blocks become red and we cannot push it anymore. So this changes the way that you tackle the puzzles because you will have to do things that are not super obvious in order to solve the puzzle, such as pushing this block around here and then be able to push this one here so that we can complete this puzzle. And there we go, level is completed. And you can see each of those columns have different puzzles. So right now I have 5 puzzles of each category, but I'll keep showing off the next categories because I don't want to keep this video be super long, and I'll maybe make another video on each of those separately as we go along and we implement those. This turn mechanic is a little bit different. What we have here again is 2. It looks very similar to the other block that we had, but what's going to happen is that the blocks will start counting up, and basically when it is full, so when I push this one, it will reset to the initial location it started off. So it allows us to have some brand new mechanics, such as being able to use those blocks, such as walls, in order to push them like this, and then I'm able to reset this block and then go and push it down here. So again, adding some more creativity to each of those blocks to keep them interesting. There we go. So now on the next mechanic, what we see is that we have blocks that have numbers on them, and what these numbers represent is the number of seconds they will tick before self-destructing themselves. So it puts some sort of pressure on the player, and if you haven't seen it, it's going to be used in the spaceship environment when there's a alert going on, so that you need to be hurrying yourself up to the next area. So these blocks are there to put a little bit of stress on the player because they forces you to do the puzzle in a short amount of time. And there we go. So the next mechanic now is building up in a different way. So I was thinking to myself, well, how can I maybe specify which block should go on specific switches? And what I thought was a very simple solution was to use different colors. So for example, the green block has to go on the green switch. The blue block has to go on the blue switch. And the same thing for the red one. And maybe to keep it interesting and keep a little bit of fuzziness in the different puzzles, I said, well, maybe if we use the regular blocks you've seen earlier, which was yellow or gold, depending on which color you prefer it to be, this will be a joker. So whenever you push it, it can go on any switches and it will still complete the puzzle, such as we see up there. And this allows us to have like a different way of positioning a puzzle and showing off which block should go where, so that it limits the scope of all the different solutions that are possible. Because as we go along, the puzzle gets harder, but at the same time, it gets a little bit more difficult to find the answers. So by having all of the different colors set up properly, it might help us kind of de-scope the whole puzzle itself. The next mechanic, oh, we have an autosave that's going to be blocking us for the next few seconds. It shouldn't take too long. There we go. All right, keep going, doesn't matter. This one is a funny mechanic. I'm not sure it's going to be in the final game. If it is, it will have to be in a very specific spot. I was asking myself, what if there was something that could be limiting the vision of the player? So instead of seeing everything, all the puzzle at once, it was only seeing a subset of the puzzle. So what we see here is what looks like a very straightforward puzzle where I can just push this block up here, but what's going to happen is that the block is going to be stuck here. So I had the idea of having some mechanic like a switch or a lever or any type of magical object there that when you would activate it, it would switch the whole perspective from black to white, and then you could keep alternating between those two states at all time. So this means that even though it doesn't seem like there's a wall over there, it will go and hit the wall over there, and then you see in the white puzzle, I have to go around and navigate my way around it and being able to push it this way, and then lastly go this way. However, I felt like the complexity was really, really tough, so it's still not sure if this will make the cut, but I still want to share like all of the different experiments that I've done. Here we have different puzzles where instead of changing the block itself, I asked myself, well, what else can we change, right? So there's switches that we need to activate in order to open the next area. What if there was also different switches? So in this case, we have a single block and we have 3 switches. And what's going to happen is when we push the block, it will activate the switch. So it will alternate the state of the switch from activated to deactivated. So now if I go around and push this one this way and push it back, this switch would turn off, this one would turn on. So we still haven't completed the puzzle. So now using again this block, I can go around and push it here, and now being able to activate only this one and not this one, which will make us complete the puzzle. Next off, again in the vague of having different type of switches, I asked myself, how can I keep this interesting? So this is version 1 of the freeze block I wanted to introduce, and what we have here is a green block that when we push on a switch, it's going to combine the mechanic of the block that was resetting itself and have brand new switch type. So when I push it on a switch, it's going to turn blue, and a new block instance of this block will be created where it was. So now I can use this new block and use this newly formed wall in order to be able to fill this gap here, and then keep doing that for the puzzle in order to do different scenarios. So that's version 1 of the freeze block. Then I experimented with it and asked myself, well, is there maybe a better way to do that? And I think I found something that might be also interesting. So we have the same block, but it's going to behave in a different way. So if you've seen the puzzle mechanics so far, what happens when you push a block is going to slide up until it hits a wall, and then it's going to stop at that place, which limits the type of puzzle that we can do. So again, we'll push this block here. The block is going to go all the way, but in order to activate the switch, when I push this green one, it's going to stop on the switch that's up here and create a new form wall. So it's in a way going to slide until it hits that switch, gets stuck there. I was calling it a freeze block, but it might be just like a magnet that will hold the block over it and get stuck there. So now we can use this newly available mechanic to be able to create a wall, even though there's a gap behind it, and then push a new block here on this one that we just used in order to push it there. Next off, what we have is complete metallic blocks. So these are another one I was thinking about. So far in the game, we've always had a block that was 1 square big, and it was kind of limited in was kind of not limited in the way that it could move around. As long as there was an opening, the block could move in it. Now, what if we could have blocks that are all magnets, and what happens when I push it, they're going to get stuck together. So what happens now is when I have to push it, the whole thing is going to move in it. As long as one of the pieces is going to block, the puzzle won't be able to, the block won't be able to move. So you have to work it through all of the different angles, and then you can push it on bigger switches like these. So that's next mechanic. Then I want to experiment with something new. I think we're going to jump in this one. So again, to try to go always to the next layer. So we've changed the blocks, we've changed the switches, but I was asking myself, well, maybe we can change the environment somehow. So what we have here is spots of color. So you can imagine that as being a puddle of paint that is lying on the floor. And what happens when you push a specific block on it is going to grab that paint and like slide it all the way below the block, and then pretty much create a line behind the block when it has touched the puddle. And now the next interesting thing is that we can mix colors. So when I mix green and red, we get yellow. And so when I push this one, let's say here now, what we're going to see behind this block is now yellow. So how is this going to be implemented? I have a feeling that we're going to be putting some sort of indication or a panel like we see here. So what we see here is kind of the solution that the puzzle is expecting, and the player has to recreate those colors. So you can see here I have a yellow, and I pretty much screwed it up because it needs to be red. And same thing here. So it will require some thinking and mixing of colors and experimenting to be able to go through this puzzle, but it shouldn't be too bad. And this puzzle type will probably be used like in very small areas and not too complex, or be very hard puzzles. So they probably will be one of those two scenarios. Next option, again, changing the different switches. So here we have, and it's very hard to see, I hope you guys can see that on the camera, but here we have a number 1 on the switch at the top, and we have a number 2 as switch at the bottom. And you can see that these blocks are pretty much numbers. This one has 3 remaining pushes, and this one also has 3 remaining pushes. So when I push this block, it's going to tick down to 2, and when I push it here, it will tick down to 1 remaining push, and this one has a 1 on it. And same thing here, we have 3 pushes. When I push it, it's going to become 2, and as I push it, the door is going to open, the level is completed. So one thing that was noticed with those brown blocks is that you're always expecting to push them until they hit 0. But now when we have an extra layer on the switch, it changes the way that we have to deal with them. And then we have the 2 different blocks. So this one that had a reset counter on it, and the one that has a ticking time on it is also can also be used with those switches because they also have number values. Here we're going to go up because these have been some experiments that I've been doing with playing with. So right now what happens is in the game, whenever you hit a wall, if you're cornered like this block here, you won't be able to move in the proper way. But by looking at different things that happens in my life, I saw that there was also games where blocks will maybe, or pieces will not move in a specific way. So for example, I played around with the chess pieces, and I really focused on the knight, so the little horsey that we can have when you play chess. And what happens when you push the knight around in the chess game is that it's going to move in an L shape. So same thing is going to happen here. This block will be moving in the L shape of a knight, and will go when there's an available space. So here there was 2 different places this block could have went, but this one is blocked off, so it went to this one. And same again here, it's going to go up, and then I can use this block to activate the switch that's down here. There we go. Puzzle is solved. Second to last, we have this block here that has a number on it, but what this number means is that when I push it, it's going to move 3 blocks away and go down. So now this creates some sort of bigger grid that the block has to follow in order to be able to be pushed around. So for example, if I try to push it right or up, there's not 3 available spaces, so this block will not be able to move in each of those directions. So I need to go and push it left, up, right, and right. And there we go. We solved this puzzle. And here is the last block, but there's going to be like another section to it, so stay tuned. So this block is a bit interesting. So this one is mirror block. So what happens when I push this block is also going to move in the same direction as this one. So whenever you affect one of the block, the other one will be moving in the same direction until they hit the wall. The cool thing about this mechanic is that I can actually tweak some things. So you guys don't see it here, but now I can invert it. So whenever I push this block up, this one is going to go down. And if I push this one right, this one is going to go left. And last little tweak we can also do, and I'll put it back so that they move the same direction. So if I push this one up, this one is going to go up. But as soon as any of these hit the wall, the other block is going to hit the wall as well. So they will be synced up in the way that they move. So moved here, this one's blocked, so this one is blocked as well. And they're, yeah. So this can create some nice mechanics. Now the cool thing about this one, and so the mirror block, I call them mirror blocks, and the magnetic one that we had here is that we can possibly mix different mechanics. So what if on the magnetic blocks, I had one of them that had a reset block on it. So whenever you push it a number of times, the whole thing would reset. We can use those puzzle mechanics to push them in a different way, and so have you be forced to go and pick up different block sections, and then it will reset back, and then you'll be able to push those the whole thing in different ways. So I don't have an example here, but this is all the different ways that we can even add more. So as we keep going, there's some mechanics that can be mixed together, and that will make some for a very interesting puzzle. So I hope you guys found that very interesting. I really want to show off all of the different work we've been doing on creating all of those different mechanics and how we can keep the Grand Block Odyssey be as interesting as it is as we keep going through the story. And we also have the challenge basically of tying all of those different mechanics to the storyline, but so far everything seems to be in order, so we should be able to use all of those mechanics and keep the game interesting as we go along. So I'd like to hear from you guys which mechanics you've enjoyed the most, and leave that in the comment below and let me know. And the one that has the most will probably be there in the game the most, or try to do some very fancy thing with it. So have a great one. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.